The Social Media Lab is powered by Agorapulse.
Welcome to the Social Media Lab, busting the myths, rumors, and stories of the social media marketing ecosystem with science. Today, we're examining Instagram ads and asking which format drives traffic most effectively, ads in the feed or stories. Jason Howe joins us to find out on today's Social Media Lab. All right, so let's say you've got a budget and you're ready to spend it on Instagram ads. Are you going to pick Instagram stories or put an ad in the feed?
I'm going to say feed because that's where all the posts are. That's where you spend all your time on Instagram. And I know at 42 years of age, I don't have any FOMO.
Well, I'm going to have to stop you because I'm going to have to go with Instagram stories. And as a disclaimer, I'm a millennial, and stories are kind of like my social bread and butter. So some days I find myself spending 10 minutes just tapping on those beautiful circles at the top of my Instagram ad.
So, two great social media marketing minds can't decide between feeds or stories.
Well, actually, I have a surprising statistic to share. When I was taking a look at these statistics, I found that there were actually more Instagram users who are not millennials than millennials. And this statistics was actually taken from a company called Statistica. It's a marketing research company. And it stated that 54% of Instagram users in 2016 were over the age of 35. And the gap is probably even wider now in 2018 since millennials were the ones who really caught on at first, but the older people were starting to use it after that.
That's surprising.
Yeah, indeed. So coming back to your initial question, I guess when it comes to deciding between Instagram feed ads or ads on stories, it depends on who you're targeting. If more of your customers tend to be older, then maybe you would pick Instagram feed ad over stories.
All right, so what if I have, say, a podcast and a blog about social media marketing,
I think I see where you're going there, Richard.
and I want to target all age groups?
That's exactly what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome.
Yeah, so first of all, advertising on Instagram is really easy. All you have to do is to select the Instagram feed or story as a placement when you set up your ad. And the process is like what you would do when you are setting up a Facebook ad. So for our listeners who have never ever advertised on Instagram, just know that the ad specifications, meaning the dimensions you have for the ad and the available features of the ad, for both the Instagram feed ad and stories are different. So you cannot run the same exact ad on both placements.
That's really interesting. And Instagram feed ads resemble the typical Facebook ad apart from, a few cosmetic differences like a call to action button that stretches across your phone and fewer lines of text shown below the visual creative. Stories give a different kind of immersive experience to Instagram users. It resembles the snaps that all you young millennials use all the time on Snapchat before stories even existed on Instagram and soon carousels probably.
Yeah, exactly, Scott. Today, our goal is driving sustainable traffic to our social media lab blog and podcast. So we are hypothesizing that there is no difference whether you use Instagram feed ad or stories when you're driving traffic to a product that caters to all age groups. And we know that everyone loves to listen to our social media lab blog. So we expect to see a similar cost per click from both placements.
Okay. How are we going to test this?
Well, since this is a very simple test, we only created one campaign with two ad sets, one being a standard feed ad
and another being an Instagram story.
Yeah, and we made sure that they were as identical as possible, even though the format is a bit different. You can see both of these on the blog, agorapulse.com/social media lab.
Yeah, and we couldn't put a conversion pixel on our blog, and the conversion objective wasn't possible. So we kind of opted for the traffic objective instead in this case.
Then we targeted a 1% lookalike audience of Agorapulse users and excluded those who had visited our website in the last 30 days or used our app. Then we narrowed down the age range to 28 to 64, since younger and older people have a smaller tendency to be our customers.
Oh yeah, we also took some time to think about which optimization objective to use, and this is a little bit more advanced. We were considering between optimizing for link clicks and landing page views, which is a rather new metric that Facebook released recently. And in the end, we opted for landing page views because it calculated the number of clicks that actually landed on our site, excluding those who hit the back button or simply closed the browser window for whatever reason. So it is a more accurate and stringent measure of traffic that went to our site. Plus, we also use the same metric, landing page views, as a balancing metric for us to check on the quality of our link clicks.
And the budget?
So we spent $20 a day, and we ran it until we achieved a statistically significant result.
Okay, so what did we find?
Well, we spent a total of $624, and we generated 1,645 unique link clicks for about 38 cents a piece.
And the landing page views was our backup metric, and we got 1,600 of those. That's only 2.5% lower than the total number of unique link clicks. This gave us confidence that the traffic generated was legitimate. Both ads spent the same amount of money in reality, and there was only a $4 difference between the two.
Yeah, but one thing we saw was that the stories ad reached about or almost 27,000 people, whereas the feed ad only reached 18,000.
That's interesting. And the stories ad generated the bulk of our link clicks at just over 1,000, whereas the feed ad only generated about 600, surprisingly enough.
Okay, so our stories ad cost the same amount of money as the feed ad, but it garnered 44% more reach and nearly double the number of clicks.
Yeah, that sounds drastic. And our calculations, concluded that our findings today are statistically significant enough to predict future results. So basically, that's saying that if we repeated the experiment again, we are very, very likely to see the same results.
Yeah, we can say with absolute confidence today that our hypothesis was flat out wrong. Instagram stories are better at driving cost effective traffic than the Instagram feed ads. I was wrong there. And we discovered an interesting trend in the experiment, too. We found that fewer people who clicked on the Instagram stories bounced from the website than those who clicked on the Instagram feed ad, which is really interesting.
Wow.
This may be a premature conclusion, but it kind of hints that the traffic from the Instagram stories were not only more than the typical feed ad, but were also higher quality.
Wow. Instagram stories really sound like a no brainer here. What else did we learn from this experiment?
So there are a couple of things. First, it's actually more expensive to advertise on Instagram feed ads than stories. The feed ad reached fewer people for the same amount of money because Facebook charges more for every 1,000 impressions on those Instagram feed ads.
We shall call this the CPM tax.
That's a good one.
Yeah, the feed ad had a CPM of $14.50, which was 70% higher than the CPM of about $8.70 for stories.
Yeah. Now, this may not remain true for long, though. Stories are currently underused by advertisers when we did this study. On the last earnings call, Facebook actually said that ads on stories is a quickly growing part of its revenue, which isn't really surprising. This means that marketers are quickly warming up to this format. So, our advice to you is to jump on this bandwagon sooner than later.
And what about the age groups? Did they correlate to stories or feed ads the way we expected?
Nope.
So this turned out to be so much more complicated than we thought it would be. And I think Scott has some interesting data to share.
Yeah, and we won't try to bore you with a lot of detailed data. Remember to go over to the blog, agorapulse.com/social media lab. There's a really cool graph on there that kind of shows you the breakdown of the ages that clicked on both of these ads, so you can kind of visualize it. Really important to kind of go over and look at that. But we thought stories were more popular among the younger age groups, like Jason, for example. And older age groups were more likely to react to the feed ads than the stories because, we see those as we're on Instagram. But the difference was less obvious than we thought. About 60% of those who clicked on the Instagram feed ad were over 34. And when we look at those who clicked on the Instagram stories ad, 49% were over 34. So a huge group of them weren't as young as we thought, which may mean our people who saw them or on Instagram are getting a little bit older.
Yeah, so they must be very tech savvy as well. And when we looked at, even for the people just over 54, which is like our oldest age group, a similar proportion of them, it was just a small 4 percentage point difference. Actually, a similar proportion of them clicked on both the Instagram feed ad and stories ad.
4%. That's really close.
Yeah, way too close to claim that older age groups are more receptive to feed ads than ads on stories. Plus, who's not addicted to pressing on those circles? All right, jokes aside, but I would urge you, if you're listening, to try both ad formats to see what works for you best.
Okay, so I know traffic was our objective, but did we achieve anything else from this experiment in terms of leads or free trials to our product?
Yeah, we did. So 3 people out of 3,500 signed up for a free trial of Agorapulse for a total cost of $400 per trial user.
Okay, so I guess our little podcast isn't exactly making it rain for Agorapulses.
No, it's not. But that never, was our intention with the lab anyway in the first place. But if those trials convert to paid users, that ad spend is quickly going to be recouped and will be in the positive.
Right. We're spending 15,000 per month to help crack the code of social media and then report those results to our listeners so that they don't have to do the dirty work. And it sure isn't a very cost-effective way to drive more people to use Agorapulse. This podcast, this blog, the lab itself is a long-term strategy to upkeep the quality of social media content and to build a valuable resource for all marketers. So we can confidently and conclusively say that stories ads are way better at driving cost-effective traffic than Instagram feed ads. And that's statistically significant. So we're pretty sure this is predicting future outcomes. Jason, how will this affect our paid social media content strategy going forward?
So it's quite clear that ads on Instagram stories are way more cost effective at driving traffic to our site than using the feed ads on Instagram. Our data supports it and even hints that traffic from stories is of a higher quality. But also at the same time, a couple of weeks back, I actually shared a teaser of this experiment with some Facebook advertisers and asked for their opinions. One of them actually asked a really, really good question. And the question was, how would stories compare to Facebook newsfeed ads? So new Facebook newsfeed ads is kind of something that we think is better than Instagram feed ads, simply because a lot more people use Facebook. So I kind of went back to our ads manager and launched a second campaign after was asked that question. And we are about to round up the experiment. And I think that we will just create a document to talk about that experiment. We had some interesting findings from that as well. So we'll upload that document at the bottom of our blog post, and our listeners can download it if they like.
Awesome.
Separately, to answer your question about what we will be doing in the future, Facebook also announced that it has launched a new ad format, and it's the carousel ads on the Instagram stories that Scott mentioned earlier, and it's actually in beta right now. So once we get access, we'll definitely run another experiment to see if carousel ads are better than the single frame stories ads.
There's always more experiments. I want to thank Jason Howe for joining us for this paid experiment. He'll be back again in a few weeks for another paid experiment. Is there a test you'd like the Social Media Lab to run for you? Give us a shout out on the Agorapulse Facebook page. We can't wait to hear from you. And if this podcast has added any value to your marketing efforts, we'd really appreciate a good rating on iTunes.